All right, before we make our other route tables and some of the other kind of resources that we are going to need for the application and to complete this challenge, I want to show you what we just did realistically, okay? So currently we have, I'm going to filter by VPC, all right? So you can see that we have, do I need to refresh? Bum, bum, bum. Filter by, I guess it's not gonna, I thought it would tell me. But anyway, so I'm gonna go to my subnets and I have my public and my private. And then if we look at my public one, you can see that it has this route table associated with it, which allows local traffic. And then it also can communicate with the internet gateway, all right, which the internet gateway allows us to connect to the internet, which it's a gateway to the internet. Makes sense, right? So what I want to do now is I want to test out my subnets, right? So right now I have a private subnet that has no route table to an internet gateway. So it's just local traffic, and that's just kind of what, if a subnet's in a VPC, it can communicate with other things in that VPC. That's a default, okay? And then we have our public that has access to the internet. So what I want to do is I'm actually going to go to EC2 now. Now EC2, as you can see by this little description, is a virtual server in the cloud. So the way I think about an EC2 is essentially just it's a computer that is not near you. Right now, my computer's right in front of me. I can type my code. I can see everything. I can go through my files, right? An EC2 instance is the same thing. It's just a computer in the cloud, okay? And the cloud doesn't actually exist. The cloud is just another location. It's a computer somewhere that you can't see. And so in order to communicate with that computer, and in order to like change things on that computer, you need to put a little bit more work into it. You can't just open up the computer screen and get going. All right. So in order to launch an EC2 instance, what we need to do is we need to click this first, go to EC2 dashboard. Then we need to click this on instances, click launch instance. All right. So we're going to name it, and this is going to be on our public subnet. So what we're going to call this then is, you know what we can do? We can just call it public. Let's say call it deploy in public EC2 to keep with our naming. I'm going to keep that. It's just going to be an Amazon Linux. That's going to be like the type of virtual machine that we're doing. There's a ton of different AMIs that you can use, Amazon machine images. Feel free to research more about it, but for our purposes here, we're just going to use the default Amazon Linux. And then I'm going to keep it at T2 micro because it's free tier eligible and it's pretty tiny. But as you open it up, you can see that there's a bunch of different options. You can see that like T2 Nano, for example, costs less per hour than T2 Micro. So you want to look into all of those different things. I don't think it's free tier eligible though, but that part's up to you to look up. We'll keep it there. The next thing you want to do is select a key pair. Now, this is a new AWS instance account, so I don't have a key pair. Now, what is a key pair? So we can click on this info and read the description here. So you use a key pair to securely connect to your instance, all right? What does that mean? So like I was talking about a few minutes ago, where I said that when you want to work on your computer, you just open up your computer, type in your password, log in, go, you have access to all of your files, okay? When you're working with a computer in the cloud, all right, you need to have that login capability as well, and the key pair is how we're going to do that, all right? You can go ahead and read the documentation more on key pairs if you want to know more about it, but we're going to go ahead and click the Create New Key Pair. I'm going to leave it the way that it is, and then I'm going to create a name, which I'm going to say EC2. Let's do deploy in public key pair. All right, and then I'm going to click create key pair. All right, and then it's going to download this key pair here to my computer. All right. Excuse me. And then that is how I'm going to connect to my instance, which if that doesn't make sense, that's fine. we will look at in a second. Okay. So the next thing that we need to do is it automatically sets up for the network settings that it's going to be within the default virtual private cloud. We want to change that. Okay. We don't want it in the default. We want it in our deploy in public VPC that we set up. Okay. And then we want it to be in one of our two network or subnets. We're going to use our deploy in public subnet. All right. The next part that we're going to do here, and remember, this subnet, all right, is associated with the route table, which has the connection to the VPC with the internet gateway, right? So we are able to communicate with the internet if we are within the public subnet. If I selected the private subnet, we would not be able to. So keep that in mind. All right. Auto assign public IP. So we want to have a public IP so that way we can access our application that we put on this computer in the cloud. We want to be able to access it and publicly through the internet. So we will go ahead and enable the auto assign of a public IP address. You can assign it afterwards, but you'll have to manually go do it. So I'm going to go ahead and just say enable it. All right. We'll create the security group. I'm going to say deploy in public. Public EC2. Is that what I named it? Yeah. So we're going to say public security group. Okay. I'm going to keep I like to just duplicate the name into the description. So we'll do that. And then now we want to think about our inbound security group rules. So inbound security group, what does that mean? That means what are the rules for the traffic that you are going to allow to come into your EC2 instance? Okay. What do you want your EC2 instance to be able to receive? Okay. So I need to be able to SSH into this instance. What does that mean? That is how I would open up the computer screen, type in my password, which is essentially the key pair part of things. And then I'm now in the computer and I can look at the files, I can change things, I can update things, I can download things, I can do all the things on that computer. SSHing into it is a way to get into the computer, okay? And that is going to just, the defaults is that's a TCP protocol and that's on port 22. All right, so source type is asking where do I want to be able to SSH from, okay? So you need to think about it this way. Do I want anyone to be able to SSH into this EC2 instance? If you're working on a team, maybe yes. If you're working from different computers, maybe you want all of those computers to be able to. But for me, I don't need it to be anywhere, okay? I just need from my IP address, from my computer where I'm at now, I need to be able to SSH into this instance. So I can go ahead and say the same thing, SSH for admin desktop. Okay. So that is going to be my inbound security group. Okay. Bum, ba-dum, bum, bum. All right. We also need to be able to have traffic come in from the outside too. But I think we're not going to do anything else in terms of security groups right now because I'm not super clear as to how I want to word that rule and what I need to do. So I'm going to see what I can do first with the way it is set up and then edit from there. Okay. One instance is fine. The rest of this is fine. So then I'm going to click launch instance. All right. So now we have successfully initiated launch of instance. And so you can click here to go to it, or you can go back to your EC2. So if I go to EC2, you can see that I have instances. This is filtering for running. So that means it's still pending state. And I can go ahead and refresh until it gets to the point where it is public. All right. So now it is running. Okay, so this is how we're going to connect now. So connect, this button here gives you all the options for how you can connect. Okay, we already set up that we can SSH into the instance. Okay, so I'm going to select SSH client, which should be the automatic. Then I'm going to open up a terminal. Okay, so I have my terminal here. And then I'm going to, first I'm going to run this command to make sure my key is not publicly viewable. I think since this is the first time I'm using this key, it is in my downloads folder. So you need to also be in the same folder that you downloaded your key to. So I'm going to go into CD downloads. I hope that's the right thing. And then I should be able to see how that worked now. So before, when I ran this command, it said that it didn't exist. And then I CD'd into my downloads folder. CD means change directory. So I want to change the directory to downloads. You can see that it then moved me into the downloads folder. And then I ran the command and it worked. All right, the next thing I can do is then copy this, which is the actual command to SSH into my instance using this key pair, and then click enter. When you load this the first time, it's going to ask you this question. Go ahead and click yes. And then if you see this cute little bird, you know that you are now into your instance. Another way you know is that now on your terminal, you see this. Okay, so yay. We were able to SSH into our instance. Why were we allowed to do that? Well, we were allowed to do that because of our security group. Okay, our security group for inbound allows us to do that. Okay, let's now, we are going to look at the same idea, but now we're going to look at it from our another instance. We're going to do a private instance. Okay. All right. So we're going to call this deploy in public private EC2. And we still have work to do on the public EC2, but I want to kind of show the comparisons because the point of this is to understand how the networking works. Okay, so we're not done with the EC2 instance. I just want to show how you can SSH into one, but not the other, and why. Okay, so we'll keep the Amazon Linux, T2 Micro. I'm going to go ahead and just use the same key pair. Dun, 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 dun. Okay, so it says, let's go. We have to change our subnets to the deploy in public VPC, and then we need to change it to the private subnet. The private subnet does not connect to through the internet gateway, so we won't be able to access it publicly. So we also don't need to have a public IP address. All right. And then in terms of security group, we should not be able to SSH into our instance because it's in a private subnet. So even if we say, so let's go ahead and just say we should be able to SSH in from my IP address, that's not going to work. And let's go ahead and verify that and take a look. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and click on the instance, and it is pending. So we'll wait a second. It's taking a little bit of time to load. All right, now it's running, so let's go ahead and try to connect to it. So if you want to get out of your instance, you can go ahead and just type in exit, and you will. Let's paste in this. And you can see how the bird is not loading, and it's just sitting here and thinking and like spinning its wheels. If we just keep sitting here, it'll eventually time out because why? We are in a private subnet, no traffic can go into our private subnet or out of our private subnet. Now, you might be wondering, well, Callie, what's the point of a private subnet? Well, we will see in the next week's assignment what's going on. Now, we're not done with this assignment, but in the next video, we will go ahead and configure our public EC2 instance to be able to show the NGINX server homepage. All right. We could wait for this to go out, but it's not working. I'll go ahead and pause the recording and I'll come back when it shows that it's not working and show you. All right, it took about another 30 seconds, but here you can see that we have port 22 SSHing into port 22 to that host, operation timed out. Okay, and it's because we are not able to SSH into anything in a private subnet. That internet gateway is necessary for this part of things in order to SSH from outside of the VPC into the VPC. Okay? All right, I'll see you in the next one.